Okay, so we are moving on. We've talked about lots of different body systems so far. We've got a few more that we'll be discussing. And the next one is the excretory system. And so excretion is where that word comes from.
Like you get rid of like stuff in your body.
Yeah, excretion means to get rid of specifically waste.
Like sweat.
Sweat is a form of excretion, yeah. Urine.
Feces.
Feces technically is not excretion. Because solid waste that was never digested was technically not really in our cells. So excretion is getting rid of the waste that our cells
Tears. Blood.
Slightly. All right, so we'll talk about some of what the organs are that are involved. So we build up waste in our bodies.
Yes.
And all cellular activities produce some waste. We know respiration, for example, produces carbon dioxide, a waste product. Okay, the digestion of different materials produces waste products, amino acids, and all sorts of things. And so our body needs to get rid of those things. And if they build up in our blood, if they build up in our cells, they can become dangerous to us. And so we have a system that allows us to get rid of those waste products. That system is called the excretory system. So our lungs are an important excretory organ because they get rid of a waste, specifically carbon dioxide, right? That's how we get rid of the CO2 that our cells produce, by exhaling. All of our cells in our body that are going through cellular respiration are producing CO2 constantly. It then diffuses into our blood, where it gets sent to our lungs, and then it diffuses into the air that we exhale. So our excretory system, our lungs, work with our circulatory system to help us get rid of waste.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oh wait, I had a pencil. Where'd it go?
So our lungs are an important excretory organ, especially in terms of carbon dioxide. Our sweat glands, Luke mentioned sweat earlier. Sweat does a couple things. It does cool us down, as you know from when we were studying homeostasis and that gizmo activity. Sweat cools us down, but also sweat isn't just water. If you ever were doing something very active and sweating a ton, or if you ever went in a sauna or something, you're sweating a ton, if it gets into your mouth, what's it taste like?
Sweat.
Salty. It's salty.
Or it gets in your eyes.
Yeah, it gets in your eyes and it burns. Right. It's because our sweat is not just water, it has salts in it. It also has other waste products like urea and other things. But it's getting rid of some of those things. So sweating is a form of excretion. If you ever, if you play baseball or something, you always wear the same hat when you're exercising or going outside, it eventually gets like crusty and weight and stuff on it. That is the salts that are left over once the sweat evaporates.
How does it consist of salt?
Yeah, the salt is sent there. We could see here sort of our skin. We could see these sweat glands. So there's capillaries where salts from our blood diffuse into our sweat and comes out. This is our liver.
Isn't it like full of junk that our stomach?
Our liver?
Like doesn't it like hold big stuff your body doesn't need like beer or something?
Our liver is a really important organ. It does a lot of things actually. A liver is kind of a multi-purpose organ. One of the things it does is it breaks down certain waste products. It breaks down red blood cells that are no longer useful. Okay? It breaks down toxins in our blood. It breaks down alcohol, for example, and detoxifies it. And it removes the nitrogen from the proteins we digest. So our liver does all of those things. It helps get rid of those and it makes them less dangerous, less poisonous for us.
That's your kidneys.
And then
I think you just live with that.
our blood, all of the blood in our body is sent eventually to our kidneys. Kidneys are extremely important excretory organs. They're towards the back of our body. Does this person have kidneys? Yes. So the back here, towards the back of our body, there we have two kidneys. There's one on each side of our spine. You can see them, they're back here in this model. They're shaped just like a kidney bean. Like a kidney bean is called a kidney bean because it looks just like a kidney. It's bean shaped. They're reddish in color. And what they do, all of the blood in our body is sent to these two kidneys. And what they do is they're able to remove the waste from our blood that's going to them. They mix it with water. And what do they form?
Urine.
They form urine. The mixture of water and all those waste products is what urine is.
Like, oh, no wonder it's all salty sometimes.
So it contains all sorts of different compounds. If we look at what's in our urine, it changes. What's in our urine depends on what we eat. Depends on how much water we've drank. So there's a bunch of different things. Okay, the biggest waste product that's found in our urine is urea, which comes from breaking down proteins. Okay, and then there's all these other things: potassium, sodium, phosphate, etc. Now,
Is that why your pee tastes salty?
How do you know?
Well, I mean, I just know people ask, why does it taste sometimes okay.
so I don't know what urine tastes like, but it is also why. So based on what we know what urine is, why is it? If you are dying of thirst, you have no water whatsoever.
It's yellow.
Would drinking urine be a good solution to that
I
problem?
don't think so.
No. Ew.
You think yes?
I mean, if there's no water.
So
yeah.
why yes or why no?
Well,
Ray says yes. Let's hear Ray's yes.
You got nothing to drink.
Okay.
It means something.
Okay. And how about the no side?
salty.
Aisha?
Make you more thirsty.
It's salty, so it would actually be less productive, like kind of like salt water.
Okay. Part of that is true.
Well,
I have sand.
the waste, so you're just putting all the things that
Like
your
how
body's getting rid of.
Yes.
Exactly. What urine is, it has all of these waste products that if they were to build up in our body would be toxic. If you just consume them again, you're putting them back into your body and they're going to build up to even higher levels. So now, I mean, hopefully you never have to do this, but I guess if you had drank tons of water and then for some reason you were stuck on a deserted island with no water,
Oh my.
I guess maybe the first time when your urine is very dilute, maybe it might be beneficial to get some of that water back in your body. But what happens?
Just a little bit.
What happens if you're dehydrated to your urine?
If it's yellow.
It's yellower, and there's a reason for that. Your kidneys are monitoring how much water you have in your body. When you have excess water and you have plenty, what do your kidneys do with that extra water?
It adds it to the
We
urine.
put it in your urine. You don't need that
That's why
water
it's
anymore.
clear.
So if you're well hydrated, like, when you are training for like a race, for example, people are concerned about their hydration, and what the advice is usually, if your urine is relatively clear, it means you're hydrated enough. But when you're dehydrated and your body doesn't have enough water, what your kidneys do is they say, okay, we need to hold on to as much water as possible, and your kidneys put less into your urine, and therefore it's darker because it's less water and a higher concentration of those waste products. So your kidneys are constantly balancing your water. And that's why, depending on your hydration level, your urine can change in color. Aisha?
I know that what is like you guys stuff
Oh, those are the adrenal glands. Remember we talked in our, so yeah, this diagram, these are the kidneys. The kidneys have a little hat on them. It's actually our adrenal glands that produce adrenaline, that hormone that promotes the fight or flight response. That's just sort of where they're located. The kidneys have the adrenal glands on top of them. So blood from your circulatory system, you could see these red, this red is an artery, sends the blood to the kidneys. The kidneys filter out those waste products from your blood and then send the cleaned blood back into circulation through this blue vein. They mix the waste products with water, which then goes through these two tubes. Each kidney has a tube. It's called the ureter. And it brings, basically our kidneys produce a constant drip of urine that goes down this ureter on each side. And it gets collected in what's called the urinary bladder, or sometimes we just call it your bladder. And the bladder, because your kidneys are constantly producing a drip of urine, it slowly fills up with urine, and it can expand. It has nerves which connect to our brain that tells us when our bladder is starting to become full, gives us the information to our brain that we need to go and use the bathroom. And so then, as that urine that's in the bladder, at the bottom of the bladder is a muscle that stays closed typically, so the bladder doesn't just, so the urine doesn't just leak out.
Yeah, I always noticed
And then
that.
when a person urinates, they can relax that muscle, and then the urine leaves the body through another tube. It's called the urethra. The urethra, there's only one. It goes from the bladder out of the body to send that urine out. So that's kind of the pattern of waste removal in the kidneys. Blood goes to the kidneys, they take the waste, they mix it with some water, it drips into the bladder, which fills up. When the bladder opens up, it sends the urine out of the body through the urethra.
I always noticed that, like, you always have that muscle, you know.
That's what our urine's made. So our kidneys, let's talk, yeah, Angela?
Is it the same for animals too?
Yeah, pretty much. Like mammals, yep. Mammals have kidneys, and some don't have the same kind of bladder. And so basically, like urine, or like birds, for example, the feces of birds and their urine is the same.
It's
Like
white.
birds just have
They have one
them
giant.
mixed together.
I think it's because
So
they have a
there
clear
is some
wake.
variety, but lots of animals have the same setup as humans.
I think it's because they have a clear wake.
Good question, yeah. So we need our kidneys. We cannot survive without a functioning kidney.
I thought you said
Hold on.
we could get rid
So-
of one.
We can live with one. So if a person, there are different things that could damage kidneys, like a physical impact. A car accident, for example, could damage the kidneys physically so that they don't work very well anymore. Infections can damage the kidneys. Viruses can damage the kidneys. Excess, too much protein in the diet, toxins like alcohol and things can damage the kidneys. And so if one kidney is damaged, but the other one is functioning properly, a person can live with a single kidney. One kidney can do all of the filtration, get rid of enough waste to keep us healthy. So you can live with one kidney, and you can live perfectly fine with a single kidney.
I was like kidney transplant.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. Good question, Andrew. So you can live with a single kidney. If both kidneys are not functioning properly, maybe because of some disease or something, then you can't survive. There's different things that we can do when a person has kidney disease, when their kidneys are not functioning. So a temporary fix is a person can go to a doctor's office every day, every other day, and get connected to a machine. It's called a dialysis machine. And this is a picture of it. and they go to the doctor's office, and their blood is hooked up to this machine, and basically the blood comes out of their body, goes into this dialysis machine, and then goes back into their body. And this machine's job is to basically act as your kidney, to take out lots of the waste products from your blood. And so it can do a good enough job that you typically can stay healthy enough until you can find a permanent fix to the kidney issue. So that's called dialysis. And it's a common procedure. Lots of people that have kidney disease have to go for dialysis regularly. It works, a dialysis machine works based on the principles we've learned about, diffusion and osmosis, molecules moving from high to low concentration. It all works based on diffusion. Well, that's not a permanent solution. I mean, you can go to the doctor every day or every other day to do this. And Angeline, what did you mention as a more permanent solution? A kidney transplant. So certain organs of the human body can be transplanted from one person to another. And so if a person, their kidneys were not working, they could get someone else's kidney transplanted into their body. Sometimes it happens that, let's say, a person had kidney disease, they needed a kidney transplant. If they have a close relative that has two healthy kidneys, that person can actually donate one of their kidneys. Okay? Because the person that's donating a kidney can live fine with a single kidney, and then the person that had kidney disease would have a healthy kidney, and then they can survive as well. So a kidney transplant from a living person, they can donate another kidney to somebody. Now there has to be certain things, there have to be a match in different blood types, and the more closely related they are, the more successful it typically would be. But also, we'll talk a little bit in the immune system. When you get an organ transplant, there's other organs. A lung can be transplanted, a liver can be transplanted, eyes can be transplanted. But whenever a person is getting an organ transplanted, it's possible that their body's immune system sees that transplanted organ as something foreign that shouldn't be there. And our own immune system could actually destroy that organ. So typically when a person receives an organ transplant, they have to take special medications which lowers their immune system so that they're less likely, it's called rejecting the organ. So they're less likely to reject this transplanted organ. Sometimes a person can get a kidney donated from a person that has passed away. So when a person can be an organ donor. For example, on my driver's license, I've chosen to be an organ donor.
So when you die,
So when I die, any of my organs that are useful, that are healthy, I've given permission that doctors can use them to give to a person that maybe needs that organ to help them stay alive,
Can I
help
have your
them
heart?
be healthy. So kidneys can be transplanted, and lots of other organs can be transplanted as well. And once a person receives a kidney transplant, if it's successful, they can live perfectly healthily with that transplanted organ. Did someone have another question? I thought. Ray, did you have a question a few minutes ago that I?
No, I was just gonna say my older sister only has one kidney.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah. There are different things that can happen that kidneys don't function properly.
Disease,
Um,
an accident.
What's interesting, when you do get a kidney transplant, they actually leave the other kidney. They don't take the kidney out that's not working. They actually just sort of paste in the transplanted kidney.
I didn't know they have 3 kidneys.
Yeah.
I'd like to have 4 kidneys, so if one dies, they just like be like, oh, okay.
There are other types of kidney or excretory disorders.
Kidneys.
And obviously, if the kidneys aren't working, waste can build up in the blood. And that's bad. It can start to poison us. Kidney stones.
Oh, that's scary.
A kidney stone, sometimes in the excretory system, in the urinary system, somewhere between the kidneys and the ureter and the bladder, minerals like calcium can start to form little
Watches,
little
stone.
secretions, and they're called kidney stones. And this is what one looks like. And a kidney stone can form, but then what typically happens is as it's moving through the ureter, or if it's in the bladder and is moving through the urethra, it can be extremely painful.
I mean, yeah.
Okay? That obviously these are narrow tubes which are transporting urine around the body. So this
Jagged
little chunk of
stones.
minerals is painful as it leaves the body. And so, typically if a person has kidney stones, they might in certain times be in really intense pain until they pass the stone, until it comes all the way out of their body through the urethra and is out, so it's no longer causing that pain. Sometimes they can try to break them up using sound waves. It's often not a very successful procedure, but they can try to get rid of those stones before they or after they form, before they pass through the body. And it's similar. We talked about gallstones as well. Gallstones are the same kind of thing. When for some reason these minerals are accumulating together to form this little
And what's
stone,
the difference?
it's different from a different source, but again, it's painful because the tubes that gallstone's moving through are really narrow, and it can interfere with the flow of bile in the gallbladder or urine, for example.
You can't drink water.
People can get infections also in the urinary system, like a bladder infection, a urinary tract
My
infection.
Navy got a bladder infection.
It's very common to get what are called urinary tract infections or UTIs. And it's when bacteria get into the urinary system and cause an infection. It can cause pain, it can cause inflammation. Urinary tract infections are more common in women than men because the urethra is much shorter in women than it is in men due to anatomical differences.
Is that why
Liver.
your pee burns sometimes?
There could be lots of reasons for that. Liver fat. Oh, are you sure?
I was gonna say, isn't it also cause people don't urinate?
Yeah, like holding urine for too long might increase the risk
Yeah.
for urinary tract
I
infection.
mean, it's possible. Your bladder is very stretchy.
Liver failure. Excuse me. Like we talked about earlier, our liver detoxifies lots of things from our blood. Amino acids, proteins, alcohol, drugs, toxins that we might happen to ingest. And so our liver is really important. You can't live without a functioning liver. And so cirrhosis of the liver is when it gets damaged. And it can be damaged by excessive habitual drinking. If a person is an alcoholic and drinks daily large amounts of alcohol, because our liver detoxifies that alcohol, it's stressful on the liver. And so it can lead to eventual damage to the liver, so much so that it doesn't function anymore. And so if a person has damaged their liver so much, they might need a liver transplant. Same kind of thing as the kidney. You can transplant a liver from one person to another, and hopefully they can be healthy. Okay, that's all for the excretory system. And so one of the things hopefully you're starting to notice is that lots of these systems work together,
Yes.
especially with the circulatory system. Like the excretory system works with our circulatory system by removing the waste from our blood. Our digestive system works with our circulatory system because it sends the nutrients we digest into circulation to be distributed. Our endocrine system works with our circulatory system because it sends hormones into our blood to be circulated throughout our body. These systems are all working together to help our bodies to maintain homeostasis.
All this. What?
We'll talk about the nervous system this afternoon. I got one
I already
more.
know about it. See,
one
the
more
brain
video.
goes down your spine and it helps.